Hey guys, welcome to the Opinionative Child Rights Expert Podcast. Like I said last week, we're going to be discussing today the Kenyan case that is called the Nubian children's case versus Kenyan government in the African Committee of Experts on the Rights and Welfare of the Child. Now, it sounds like such a big topic, but believe me, we're going to break it down and tear it down and talk about it in the most layman language you've ever heard. You're not even going to hear one legal word. And I'm not saying you don't have the capacity to digest that. I'm just saying this is a child rights podcast. I want a child to be able to listen in and be like, hey, that makes sense. I want a parent on YouTube to be like, hey, I can put this channel on and my child can listen to it and learn about history as it goes on. So it's not about you, it's about them kids. Okay? Now, let's get into it. So, why was this case brought? Who brought it? And why is this case so necessary today? Now, this case was brought on behalf of the Nubian children. Now, let me give you a proper history. Now, when the British came to Kenya to colonize us, I'm Kenyan so we can speak about it. When the British came to Kenya to colonize us, they passed by South Sudan and picked up the Nubian people and brought them to Kenya as soldiers and as workers. Now, I think the soldiers part is what was making Kenyans feel some type of way, because when the British people left, like when we gained our independence, Kenyans are like, hey, what are you still doing here? What are you still doing here? Your masters left, follow them. And this is not written anyway, record. I'm just saying this was the vibe in Kenya. Okay? Like, follow your people. You don't belong here. Go back to where you're from. And the thing is, the British didn't come in 2026 and left in 2027. These people stayed here for decades. So if they brought other people, let me explain this in a way that everyone would understand. They went and took other people from their country, uprooted them, brought them here to do labor for the either no pay or the most minimal pay ever. So, in short, they were colonizing them and they colonized us. The audacity, the caucasity, but focus. But when they left, they did not take them with them. They did not return them to where they're supposed to be or pay them and offer them a way out. They left them here. And the Kenyan government also did not recognize the Nubians as Kenyans because in real sense, at that moment, they were not Kenyans, and we were still, and during that time, we gained independence in 1963, and this is when everything was starting to come together, like the UN. But at the same time, we're like, so you guys were brought here to work as soldiers for the British. And laborers for them, okay? And you want to be recognized in our country as part of us just because you stayed here for decades. No. So the Nubian people started bringing this issue to court because, listen, we've been in your country for all this time and you're not recognizing us. You're not recognizing our children. We are now lacking and lagging behind in terms of development and every other thing. And someone has to do something about it, right? You would think that would be the case. When this case was brought in Kenyan courts, the judiciary was just like, so we lost the file. So we can't find the file. So how about we continue this case in this and this because the lawyer for this side is not available. So many excuses. Some valid, some not valid. And someone with a bright mind was like, hey, the African Union has done something. There's the Charter on the Rights and Welfare of the Child, and in that charter there's a committee of experts on the rights and welfare of children. And if we take this matter, we frame it in a child rights manner and take it to the committee can make a decision that will be binding, and Kenya will have to follow what the committee has said. I want you to hear the word binding and be like, what do you mean binding? It's a committee, not a court, okay? When a court makes a decision, of course it's binding, especially if it's the final decision. But a committee on the rights and welfare of the child? Like, what are you talking about? The decision is not binding, but it's moving. It's an opinion. Like, look at what I'm doing. It's an opinion. So, but it's not really binding, but it looks like it's binding. I hope you get the gist of what I'm saying. So they take this matter to the committee and they're like, hey, So these are the issues that we're facing in Kenya. And first of all, I'm looking down because I have my laptop and I want to give you the right information. Okay, so the issues that they were bringing about was, number one, the issue of statelessness. It's illegal for a person to be stateless. Like, you have to have a place where you were born, right? And Kenya would be like, cannot be the country that says, hey, I know you were born here and your generation has been here for more than 5 decades, but you're still not going to recognize it. No, you're forcing them to be stateless, which is actually illegal. Okay, now that was number one. Number two, identity. They're not recognizing their identity in anything. I'm not giving you birth certificates, I'm not giving you ID cards, and by that I'm also denying you other things, because in Kenya, if you don't have an ID, you don't have a birth certificate, you're not getting access to health, you're not getting access to education, among many other things. Now imagine who you would be without access to health and access to education. Think about it for a minute. Now, the other thing they were also saying is that even though they are violating international law, in real sense, they are also violating regional law, which is the law that Kenya agreed to when they ratified the African Charter on the Rights and Welfare of the Child. So leave alone the whole UN system and the whole international sphere. Let's focus on the continent of Africa. We signed this agreement and said, you're not going to make any child be stateless. You're not going to make any child lack their identity. You're not going to make any child suffer because of lack of education and lack of health. These are rights that you agreed to provide for children in the continent. You signed this document, and now you're saying you're not going to give that to our children just because you don't think they're Kenyan. These are the matters they brought to the committee. Now, what did the committee say? Anyway, this is what the committee said. I am so excited. I get excited like this for everything when it comes to children's rights. Wait, before we talk about what the committee said, I want to talk about the African Charter more, because I'm telling you the rights they violated, and I want to show you where they are. And I'm going to give you these notes. Like I said in our introductory episode, I'm going to give you these notes so that you can have them. I'm going to give you the adult versions, which are simplified in a way that adults can understand. And also I'm going to give you the children's rights version, which is something that you can give your child who's like 6 and they can understand. Maybe not 6, I don't know. Parents, you can give me feedback after this. So these are the rights that Nubians were alleging. I don't call them Nubian, but because in real sense they're Kenyans, but we're not there yet. So the Nubian children and their representation, this is what they were alleging. Number one, violations of Article 3 of the Charter of Non-Discrimination. They were saying their children are being discriminated and are not treated as equal as any other Kenyan children, which is true. Okay. Number 2, Article 6 of that charter, name and nationality. Every child should have a name and nationality, and this is actually even inbred in Kenyan law. 53, Article 53 of the Constitution. Go there and read it. You cannot have a child without a name and a nationality. Okay. The next article they were saying is Article 14 of Health and Health Services. They were being denied this, just as I had told you. And then Article 11, Education. This is usually my favorite because education, like I said, is an equalizer. Okay, I've never said that. I don't know why I'm saying like I said. The opinions are getting way too much. Article 12, leisure, recreation, and cultural activities. And then Article 27, which is for development. They were saying that the lack of recognition harmed their full development and integration into the Kenyan society, which they felt like they belonged to. Now, after listening to both sides of this issue, because also the Kenyan government came and said, hey, I can see what you're saying, but I want you to understand, we're not saying we're denying you anything. It's like you guys, you came to our courts and before we could decide anything, you decide to rush here and come and report us, you know? And also, what are you talking about lack of recognition? We can recognize you. We recognize you. We recognize you. So what did the committee say? This is interesting. Okay, so in real sense, the committee agreed with the Nubians, and they said, first of all, there was violation to the right of non-discrimination, because Kenyans treated the Nubian children different compared how they treated the Kenyan children. Number two, they say there was violation to their right to nationality and birth registration, which I've explained, and you can also come to the same conclusion. And also they say there was a violation on the rights of development, because by denying them access to document services, Kenyans also they harmed the ability of the Nubian children to grow, learn, thrive, and just enjoy the environment they're in. How are these people going to develop? They're going to enjoy their country when they're being denied the basic human rights. So they were found in violation of that. And then, so when you're found in violation, the committee now orders you to do something to rectify those violations. Okay, so they're like, hey, so you did a mistake here, you did a mistake here and here, and this is how you can go back to your country and ensure that these things don't happen again, and you can offer apologies to this other side. Now, they're not saying apologies. Listen to what the committee ordered Kenyan to do. Now, they told them to ensure that birth registration of Nubian children starts as soon as possible. Start registering those children. Number two, they had to recognize the Nubian children as Kenyan citizens and give them nationality documents. Now, did Kenya do this? We're going to find out. Then they were told to take measures to ensure that Nubian children enjoy equal access to health, education, and any other services without any form of discrimination. So they could not go to a school and say, hey, I want to register my child, and they're being told, hey, we can't register you because you don't have this and this. What do you mean I don't have this and this? So the Kenyan government has to give ID, they have to give you a birth certificate, and then with those things, you need to be able to get access to schools, access to health facilities, and any other thing that a Kenyan child has access to. A Nubian child was supposed to have access to that. And we have to talk about this thing of calling them Nubian children. They're Kenyan children of Nubian history. Okay? Okay. Now, did Kenya do as it was told, or were they like, hey, you cannot order us around, we're Kenyan, and this and this and this? So Kenyan has started the whole thing of registering these children and ensuring that they do not face discrimination, and giving them access to birth certificates, give them access to IDs, and also passports. Like any other system, nothing is perfect. There is a couple of issues with the system, but as far as it is recorded, they are taking all the legal steps to ensure that this happens. Now, if you're a Nubian child a Kenyan child of Nubian originality, please let us know if anything has changed for you. I could be speaking about the legal perspective, but you're on the ground, you feel this, and you're the only person who can say if this has changed for your community or it has not. And let us know in the comments. We would like to know more about that. Other than that, I want us to discuss something that has happened this week. AFCON. Listen, I was not a fan of football, okay? I was not a fan of football. I was always like, you know. But then AFCON has been getting on my timeline for such a long time. And I was like, okay, let me watch, let me follow up. When I tell you the drama, I was so happy. Senegal, I love you guys. Oh, I have to go to Senegal. By the end of the year, I have to go to Senegal. But the thing I want us to discuss is this issue. Someone on Twitter posted and said that a man was trying to meet up with their, is it niece or nephew? Yeah. So this is the tweet. It says, "Hi Twitter, do your thing, cause this ninja fired. They tried to link with my 14-year-old cousin in school." It's a US tweet. And someone said you should off them, actually. That was one of the comments. I liked it. I'm not saying kill anyone, but now let's go to this part. So one of the comments that was left by a lady, it said that you have to whoop that child for her first ass too. What they're saying is the child was trying to act like an adult and everything. And I was like, you're punishing a victim of grooming because they were groomed. Grooming is where an adult who is most of the time a pedophile or someone who is interested in children sexually, they get to know about your child, they go around and try and make themselves so familiar with the child, and then they approach them. Most of the time they pretend to be a child, and then you find out at the end that they were an adult, or they just come as an adult and they're like, oh my god, I can relate to your issues, or they just any other way they can find to ensure that they can get the attention of your child, they do it. And they try to make them or force them into sexual activities. Now, as a parent, if this happens to your child, your first instinct should not be to beat the child because the child is trying to act fast. No, they're a victim. They've been groomed by an adult for sexual and other favors. Your first instinct should be compassion for your child. Should be, I see you. I want to protect you. It should not be, hey, you're being too fast. Why were you talking to that adult? Come on. And I'm not trying to judge you. Listen. Listen. We have to change the narrative. The shame does not belong to the victim. It belongs to the abuser. And the abuser is the pedophile in this situation. So, in usual style, I tweeted back and I said, punishing a 14-year-old for being a victim of grooming is wild. Also, calling a child fast is wild. Maybe they should also shoot you. I mean that. Anyway, that is it for this podcast episode. Like I said, it's the opinionated child rights expert. I am your expert and your host, Mary Kalechumutisia. I am from Kenya, and I will see you next week where we'll be discussing the case of Uganda, and we're going to be discussing how Uganda has such a big history. Apart from their Matoke, they're also known for having the oldest president stay in power for such a long time. If you were not careful as Kenyans, would have ended in the same place, but thank God Moi decided to leave. But anyway, we're going to be discussing Uganda and the war that was happening on the north and how it affected the children of Uganda and what the Committee on the Rights and Welfare of the Child said about this, and how Uganda reacted to being told and being ordered by the committee to do A, B, and C. Okay, I'm going to see you next week. In the meantime, let me finish my moringa and act like an adult and act like I know what I'm doing. Okay, be kind to one another, love and light.